This is Anna.
This is Christina.
This is Tanya.
And you're listening to
Life,
Crime, and Betrayal.
Crime, and Betrayal.
Life, Crime, and Betrayal.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second episode of season 4. And just to recap, we have flown across the pond to the UK. And we spoke about the infamous Jack the Ripper last week. So please check that out because you will see raw content of Christina and I reacting to the crime scenes. And mind you, Anna does the research, so she has gone super into it. And we learned so much last week that people are fucked up. Absolutely fucked up.
Agreed. There's something in the water in England. You're so eloquent when you speak.
Fucked up. They're all sick fucks. There we go. I got my catchphrase out of the way. But yeah, Anna, tell us who we're going to learn about today.
No problem. I'll get right on that. So we are, as she said, in England, but today I'm also going to be doing a fusion.
Should there be any trigger warnings? Yeah, let's do, just in case, some trigger warnings or anything. And just please be mindful to our listeners and our viewers. This is a true crime podcast, so anything that we do talk about is uncensored. We should be paying more attention to our trigger warnings, but at this point, you should already know that when you click our stuff, you will be hearing gruesome details. We are very respectful to the victims and their families. And this whole podcast is to not only talk about like mainstream true crime, but also shed light on the vulnerable that haven't had a voice. So yeah, let's start with the story. Sorry I interrupted. My apologies. That was
no worries. It's good you did because I always forget about the trigger warnings. But yeah, so I'm doing a fusion today. So it is a case involving a residence of someone in England, but the actual crime took place in Japan.
Yes. Bit my tongue very bad. So if you caught my face there, that's what happened. Jeez.
So today's case, we will be looking into a young, bright woman who was full of dreams. She was a former flight attendant from Britain, and she made the bold decision to travel to Tokyo in search of adventure, independence, and a fresh start. But just 1 month later, she vanished without a trace. Her disappearance sparked an international investigation tangled in cultural complexities, secrets beneath Tokyo's nightlife, and a man whose charm covered something far darker. What really happened to Lucie Blackman? And how did one of the most chilling cases in modern Japan unfold under the world's watchful eye? This is just not the story of a crime, it's a story of power, deception, and the fight for justice across continents.
So just backtrack for a second. She's British.
Correct.
But this took place geographically in Japan.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, so in all technicality, we haven't traveled to England or the UK. In all technicality, we are traveling to Japan.
Yes, like I said, it's a fusion.
Taking a little detour.
Probably the only time I'll actually go to Japan. Flight's way too long.
I actually love Japan. I want to go visit.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for how long the flight is, like you said, I definitely would go, no problem and no heartbeat.
That's beautiful. So like so much culture to see.
So just out of curiosity, have either of you heard of Lucie Blackman at all?
The name sounds familiar.
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Cool. So Lucie Blackman was born on September 1978 at Pembury Hospital in Tunbridge Wells, Kent, to parents Jane Steer and Timothy Tim Blackman. She was the eldest of 3 siblings, followed by her younger sister Sophie, and the youngest in the family, her brother Rupert. As the firstborn, Lucie naturally took on a caring, responsible role within the family, and her close bond with her siblings remained a constant throughout her life. Described by those who knew her as strikingly beautiful and effortlessly charming, Lucie had a magnetic presence. She was warm, outgoing, and possessed a rare ability to connect with anyone in the room, regardless of age, background, or life experience. People genuinely gravitated toward her energy, and she left a lasting impression on nearly everyone she had met.
She's gorgeous.
She's very beautiful.
Yeah. Very.
She has beautiful hair too.
And she's really pretty.
Lucie received her education at Walthamstow Hall, an esteemed private day school for girls, which was located in the heart of Sevenoaks, Kent, after completing her studies. She began working at a French bank in London's financial district, but Lucie had always been drawn to exploration and her passion for travel, which did ultimately lead her to make a bold career change. She joined British Airways and became a flight attendant, embracing a life of adventure and travel. Though she did excel in her role and was well liked among her peers, the demanding nature of the constant travel began to take a toll on her physically and mentally, due to the fact that Lucie's health had been delicate ever since her teenage years, when she endured a long and difficult battle with pleurisy, a serious lung condition that had initially stemmed from a severe case of the flu. Her father, Tim Blackman, later recalled, and I quote, he said, "She had the flu, which turned into pneumonia, and then she was quite poor for months. She then came down with a form of ME and then mentally fought it off." Due to this, the relentless schedule of the long haul flights, the time zones, and the physical strain of the job began to wear her down. By early 2000, at just 21 years old, Lucie made a life-changing decision, seeking a fresh start and a new adventure. She resigned from British Airways and set off for Japan with her best friend, Louise Phillips. And I can just imagine. I know it was always glorified a little bit to be a flight attendant, but it's difficult. It is very difficult.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I can't even handle like an 8-hour flight to Europe. I can't imagine doing long haul flights and just like the effect it has on your body. And then like mentally, because passengers can be pretty mean.
Yeah, and you never really think about it, but all the time zones that you might be entering in and out of, friggin' hate time change, let me tell you.
Yeah, but like I feel like if you make a journey or like a trip out of it, so if you have to go from like here, let's just say we're planning a trip to Japan. So from here to California or like Los Angeles, maybe you stay a day or two and then travel to Japan. I think it would be less taxing. My sister-in-law does trips from here to Hawaii and vice versa. And her and my brother, because they're married, they say it's very taxing on the body, but I think the layover helps because I don't think there's ever like a direct flight. Just recently, there's direct flights to Hawaii, but like the layovers help with I guess recuperating.
I actually
a good
spoke
word.
to like a flight attendant friend about 2 weeks ago, and she went to like Dubai for $85.
That's wild.
She works for Air Canada. She's a flight attendant, and she went to Dubai for New Year's. Like so cool for $85. You can buy for $85 here in Toronto. Nothing.
Nothing.
Doesn't even fill up my tank.
Yeah.
It fills up
Well,
my
sure, the way you drive.
it fills up my SUV and my sedan, not my SUV.
Lucie, being the beautiful, smart, sophisticated young woman that she was, actually did find a job very quickly in Japan as a hostess at a Casablanca bar in Roppongi, Tokyo. Roppongi is what would be described as the nightlife district of Japan, and honestly, it looks super beautiful. Here's just kind of like a bird's eye view. It kind of honestly reminds me a little bit of Paris, a little bit of like downtown Toronto. It just gives you a very like city vibe.
Is that
I
like
laugh. Sorry, what were we saying?
is that a Eiffel Tower there?
It kind of looks like one.
I laugh when you said Roppongi because, as you well know, my husband is well versed within the wrestling world, and there's like a song called Roppongi Vice, and it'll come on, and that's all that played in my head. My bad.
So for those who don't know what a hostess job is in Japan, because I did not know, I have the definition here, so I'm just going to read it out. So in Japan, a hostess typically works in clubs where they engage with guests to provide companionship and entertainment. Their role revolves around making guests feel comfortable and valued, often through conversation, serving drinks, and basically just engaging them to make them want to come back. And obviously, that job is, it's not, at least when you read about it, it doesn't seem quite dangerous. You're not doing anything. Everything's happening in the work environment, and all you're doing is kind of socializing with these men to make them want to come back and see you and just bring as much money into the club or the social environment that you're working in. On July 1st, 2000, Lucie Blackman's best friend, Phillips, grew concerned after realizing she hadn't heard from Lucie following a date with the man the night before. Sorry, with a man the night before. The following day, on July 2nd, Phillips received a disturbing phone call from a man claiming that Lucie had joined a cult and that she would never see her again. At this point, Phillips is extremely alarmed and immediately contacts Lucie's family to tell her that she has been missing. Despite Lucie being young and beautiful, who had disappeared in a foreign country, her case didn't initially receive widespread attention. While a few people spoke about her disappearance, it hadn't yet captured the interest of the media or the general public. It was far from a case that hit the ground running. However, Tokyo Metropolitan Police did get involved very early on in the investigation, within, I would say, probably a couple days. But due to the fact that Lucie was a foreign national, the investigators first had to consider whether she had simply left Japan to continue traveling elsewhere, possibly without informing anyone. That theory was eventually ruled out, but because they had to look into this theory, they took the missing case initially not with so much urgency, but what they did was they handed out flyers throughout the city. And I have a picture of the flyer just so that you can get an idea of what it looked like. They also began canvassing the neighborhoods that she frequented, speaking with friends, coworkers, and anyone who might have had information about her whereabouts. Despite these efforts, early signs didn't offer much hope. And also, interestingly enough, her apartment showed no evidence of a struggle, and investigators found very little in terms of concrete clues at her apartment, potential suspects, or even just the idea of maybe her packing quick and leaving. Everything was in order. 11 days after Lucie went missing, her father, Tim, and her sister, Sophie, arrived in Tokyo. Journalists later described their arrival as a pivotal moment in the case, one that brought a major surge of media attention and public awareness, both in Japan and eventually around the world. Tim Blackman became a driving force behind the investigation. He legitimately embodied what you would think any parent would do in such a tragic situation. He was resourceful, he was relentless, and he was determined. From the beginning, Tim worked tirelessly to keep Lucie's case in the public eye, fearing that her disappearance might be quietly brushed aside due to the fact that she wasn't a Japanese citizen and she was of foreign status. And I honestly think if it wasn't for him, the case might not have been solved as quickly or maybe at all.
He's like the real Liam Neeson, like the one from Taken.
Oh,
Don't you didn't that click in your head?
no.
Because when you're like, the father was relentless, the father made sure that his daughter was seen. That's all that could go in my head, was the fact that
Yeah, I haven't watched the movie ever.
this is the movie Taken.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
went through my head was like every female case that we do, it's always never taken seriously in the beginning. Like it's always just like that's just what my initial thought when you said like at first there was an urgency behind it and they kind of just like took their time maybe because she wasn't a Japanese citizen. Just like made me think that every female victim that we study here is always the same like scenario.
yeah. I mean,
I don't think it's just female though. I know because like we're making the connection because they're the most vulnerable, but I think any victim, especially if you're over age, like they'll question whether you actually wanted to run away or not, because the people that are looking for you could have been your abuser or a negative figure in your life, right? So I think that's why it took a bit of time, because of her patterns. Her patterns were, okay, I became a flight attendant. I was too sick, but I fell in love with Japan, so I'm gonna go work. So I think they were just doing, yeah, I think they were just doing it to just pretty much cover their bases, because we also have to look at this in like not like yeah, as like a business perspective. If they're going to
Yeah.
put all their time, effort, and resources into this case, she better be missing because they could be solving a cold case or another case that is more tragic.
I'm just feeling for her, like her dad being in a different country, a language barrier.
Yeah.
My heart hurts just thinking about it. He also just looks like such a like a dad.
Yeah, if you want to share his picture of
Yeah, I'm gonna
what
pull it up.
the parents look like, would be great for our viewers. But yeah, I also think keep in mind the job that she had too. It wasn't extremely risky, but the fact that you're communicating and being in contact with all these different men at any different time, I think to me automatically puts you at a little bit more of a high risk.
Yeah.
So is she only interacting with men?
No, but the
Okay.
hostess job is genuinely portrayed to invite men in. Yeah. And
So
that
that's her
is
dad and I think her sister.
correct. Yeah.
It's funny you say that because do you not think that that's the case here at like I think we talk about this every time we go to those restaurants like Jack Astor's for example, right? And those girls are just in those like very interesting outfits, right? And it's just like isn't that the seems like the same concept to me.
Like yes,
I
and I
know.
yes and no,
Yeah.
depending on what they want to wear and stuff. Because if you go to a sports bar, they're going to be dressed differently than going to like
Getting to the clientele.
yeah, yeah, right. But even at sports bars, they've like toned down. Like Hooters doesn't pretty much exist anymore because of that.
Does it?
No, we've progressed. We've progressed absolutely.
And
But
I have a question for you because you keep saying yeah, because you keep saying that like you feel like it's a dangerous job. So is that like something you wouldn't do?
Oh no. They make good money, but what I was trying to get at is just
Her
you also
position?
it's just the position you're in. You're meeting so many people that the chances of you crossing with someone who doesn't have good intention is obviously higher, right?
So sad that you would have to think about that. Like you can't even just go to your place of work and do your job. Like there has to be that underlayer.
Yeah.
so think of so okay, I because I did the comparison because as you're talking here, I am thinking that they might be similar to geishas, but they're not. And so the comparison is that the like geisha is a form of art. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But what she's doing is pretty much like you know how you see those girls dancing at bars and stuff with the bottles and the coming in with the sign and all
Also
that.
like when you do bottle service, no?
Yeah, she's kind of like that, but for for Japan culture.
Yes, it actually is compared to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense now. I
Yeah.
see where you're
Yeah,
going.
so
Yes. Okay.
a
Yeah.
hostess for them isn't like a restaurant server.
Correct.
It's like the girls there to actually do the entertainment should you be at like a bar or a club or in a social environment that requires these girls to pretty much generate revenue.
Okay. I mean, like she's
Yeah.
21, so I get it.
Yeah.
Plus the money was really good from my understanding.
Well, yeah, she's pretty.
Yeah.
She's gorgeous.
So the father was doing everything he could. He was holding press conferences, engaging with journalists, and ensuring that he was consistently visible in the media. And he was also handing out Lucie's poster on every corner, giving them to every media outlet possible. And the reason behind obviously him doing that is he wanted to make sure that Lucie was on the forefront of everyone's mind and everybody was aware and looking for out for her or possible leads. Throughout the process, though, it's important to note that there was tension between the Japanese police and Tim Blackman. Police. The
Bring out the buzzer.
yeah. The police, the reason that there was tension is if you think about it, Tim Blackman's whole purpose of using the media is to get as much information out there to find Lucie. Whereas a lot of times police don't want to use the media because they're afraid that if certain details come out, the possible perpetrator might get a hold of that information and whether he gets rid of evidence or he flees. So therefore there was tension revolving Tim Blackman and the Japanese police.
Well, that's just like Orlando. Oh my gosh, Orlandi. What was her first name?
Emanuela.
Emanuela Orlandi, and that guy went on those interviews and all those stations, and he said that he was the killer, but all the information he had given was everything he had heard through the media.
Correct.
I feel like it could be your best friend or your worst enemy in cases like this.
Yes, I agree. 100% agree. Despite, the initial searches, obviously nothing was coming up. And then as the case developed, police began to focus more closely on the Roppongi Club where Lucie had been employed. Further into police inquiry, their attention was eventually drawn to the practice of Dohan dates, where hostesses would meet clients for dinner before accompanying them back to the club. And Dohan dates is not, I wouldn't say it's part of your job description. Not if you decide to do it. I don't think it's frowned upon because you're bringing the clientele back and you're making them want more. But I wouldn't say it's part of the typical description of what a host is to do, so she can do it at her own fruition. Okay, and I'm assuming there's going to be obviously more money involved with that. And these interactions are actually very common in Tokyo's nightlife, and it did become a key line of inquiry in trying to trace Lucie's final moments. Despite these efforts, the investigation stalled again. With limited evidence and a few credible leads, the case began to grow cold. And it seemed like every new avenue, everything they were looking at would come to a dead end. And then an investigator decided to take a different approach. And he said he wanted to take the case and start from scratch. And what he did was he looked at previous case files that had nothing to do with Lucie, that had similarities to Lucie's case, and that had just having maybe girls that came forward saying that they worked as a hostesses or from the Roppongi area. And when he did that, he found a few details that, light bulb. One report in particular stood out. It described a young foreign hostess working in the Roppongi area who had accepted an invitation from a regular customer to take a drive to the seaside. According to the report, during the drive, the woman suddenly blacked out, and when she regained consciousness hours later, she was in severe pain, particularly in her head. The disturbing nature of the account, along with a striking resemblance to Lucie's last known movements, gave investigators new hope. As the investigation and the investigators dug deeper, more women began to come forward. Many of them former hostesses sharing similar experiences. These women described encounters with a well-dressed Japanese man who exuded wealth and confidence and was intelligent. He often arrived in luxury vehicles and portrayed himself as very sophisticated, nice, and generous. And according to the multiple accounts, this man had a routine. He would invite the woman on a drive to the sea before dinner. Once alone with him, the woman reported blacking out under obviously suspicious circumstances. Many suspected that they had been drugged, and when they regained consciousness hours later, they experienced intense physical pain, confusion, and in a lot of cases, signs consistent with sexual assault. And part of the reason these cases back then were not really looked into from Tokyo police is two reasons. One, a lot of people who work as hostesses are actually working illegally. They don't have a working visa, therefore they're afraid to come forward to the police. And from my understanding also, there was a few hostesses that had gone forward to their employer. And when the employer informed the police, he was known or she was known to be an embellisher. So police didn't take his statements too serious. So it was looked into, but not really.
For those like me who are stupid enough not to know what embellisher is, what is it?
It's Can you explain it better?
English teacher? Christina, your mic is muted? Question mark? I did not hear a single thing you said.
Sorry, I had to do that because
Oh my god, stop muting your mic.
I had to yawn. I didn't want the mic to capture my yawn. If you embellish something, that means that you like not falsify it, but you make it seem like more grand than it is. Like add details and stuff, but like make it seem more better.
Yeah, that's the perfect sentence. More better.
Is it more better? Yeah, more better.
Embellish, like you like
Isn't it just better?
Better.
better.
Yeah.
More
Yeah.
better, I don't think is an actual.
No, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Did I say more better?
You
No.
did. You did say more better.
Oh,
English teacher.
I'm off the clock.
So as they were looking at all these women that were coming forward, all the details were consistent across the testimonies, and at this point, too specific to be a coincidence. With each new report, it became increasingly clear to investigators that they were not dealing with an isolated incident. Instead, it seemed that there was a serial sexual predator that was operating in Tokyo's scene for years, undetected. But the question is at this point, who? Investigators then received another tip from a woman named Jessie, who had been assaulted by what she believed to be the same man a few years before Lucie's disappearance. And she said when they had met up, she had took down his name and number in a notebook. But after she was attacked by him out of frustration, she went back to her notebook and scribbled over the name and number.
Why would she do that?
But the police said send it over anyway, and they were able to uncover everything. The name that they uncovered was Yuri Honda, and obviously they were able to uncover the phone number as well. The next step, clearly, track his phone activity. And luckily enough, the number was still active, and police began analyzing his call records, focusing specifically on any contact around the time Lucie went missing. And sure enough, there was a connection. But there was a small complication. Yuri Honda was actually using multiple aliases, and that wasn't his name.
I was gonna say that sounds too good to be true. That if it like he is our culprit here, that he was giving a real number and real phone number, real name.
Yes. And like Christina said, obviously, if he is the suspect, then he's using it to avoid detection, obscure his criminal activities. Even so, investigators had one significant advantage. Tokyo in 2000 was already utilizing cell tower technology. Obviously, it wasn't as advanced as today's standards, and they couldn't get an exact location, but at least it was enough to give a generalized idea of the phone's movements. Using this, sorry.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, and always, still
Always.
Yeah. Using this, investigators tracked the pings from Yuri's phone on the day Lucie disappeared. What they found was that the phone would ping one tower, and then, a few short minutes later, it would ping another tower, and then it would ping another tower, and so on and so forth. And they concluded that it was impossible for him to be traveling to these areas and pinging off these cell towers so quickly. And before I continue on what reasoning they came to why that was happening, viewers, listeners, hit pause and see if you can figure out what your reasoning is on why that would be. And I'm going to ask you ladies to also think.
I knew that was coming, and I don't know. So wait, he's not bouncing off the same tower?
Correct.
No, the connection's bouncing off multiple towers.
Mm-hmm. And the investigators said between the distances and the short amount of times that it was pinging, it's impossible for him to travel that quickly.
And we're talking about the early 2000s. We're talking about like the late 90s, early 2000s. So you didn't have like that intense technology with the phones, right? So,
Correct.
Is it more than one person?
No. That's a good idea, though. I like that one.
Yeah, but for that to work, you need to simultaneously like hit the call button. Like that won't work.
Is he using like, I don't know, like an internet cafe or something?
Oh, maybe like some sort of signal.
Early 2000s, those are a thing, right? Like
They're
internet's
still a thing, by the way.
They are, because Luca
Yeah.
Magnotta used one not too long ago.
of course.
Yeah, I would say he's
IP
using.
address? Like, can you do that back
No,
then?
you can't change. No, because everything was like dial up. No, right? So I would say,
Do you know
yeah,
the
go with
answer?
Christina's theory with like there was like signal interference, maybe like a police signal
Yeah.
thingy. Yeah.
His background is technological. He knows how to manipulate it somehow.
Okay. So what the police went back to was they have an idea about him. They know that he had money. They knew that he had a taste for luxury and that he drove expensive cars and obviously lived a high-end lifestyle. So what they did was they took those pings off these different cell towers and they identified a central intersection that covered all those ping towers.
Oh,
So
wow.
so he's in an intersection that like I don't know, like a crossroads of some sort that's pinging all these towers.
Correct. And so when you're in an intersection and let's say this tower covers it and that one, right? Sometimes you'll ping off that tower, or sometimes you might ping off the other tower, but you're sustained in one location.
Do you think he knew that?
Yeah,
Like he did it
not
on
really.
purpose?
No, no, no,
No,
no.
yeah, no, I don't think he's that smart, to be honest.
Well, also,
He
like,
was smart
if
enough
you
to
knew,
give a fake number.
yeah, but if you knew that your phone was pinging to every cell tower and they pinpoint a middle location, I don't think you would even like call from where you're calling.
Mm,
You'd actually go somewhere else,
yeah.
right?
And in this intersection, they found a high-end apartment complex. It was
Oh, of
exclusive.
course. It's a luxury person. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Exclusive, it's secure, equipped with CCTV surveillance, and in 2000, Japan, the level of security was rare due to its privacy laws. But I guess in places where the elite lived, it was more likely to exist. Investigators obviously start looking into people residing in this apartment complex, and they did find something of interest to them. A man was renting two apartments on the sixth floor who was working for a company called P. Orihara. And guess what? The man had a lot of luxury cars. Unfortunately, based on the limited evidence available at the time, investigators didn't have enough to obtain a warrant to search his properties or personal belongings. So, as a result, the investigation stalled, at least for a while, on Yuri Honda. But then another few past victims found the courage to come forward, offering critical information that helped revive the case. One of the most significant breakthroughs came from a former hostess named Monica, who coincidentally was also from the UK. Based on the scarce details, or is it scarce? Scarce? Scarce. Scarce.
Scarce. That's scarce.
Details
No, I'm
known
kidding.
about the suspect, Monica revealed that she had known him under the name Koji. She told investigators that she had met Koji in Tokyo's Roppongi district on October 10th, 1997. He had taken her to an upscale apartment with a stunning ocean view, palm trees, and the atmosphere of extreme wealth. This clue then shifted investigators' focus to the luxury waterfront complex known as Zushi Marina. And the reason they came to that is because there was only one area that had palm trees, and it was Zushi Marina.
Guy has a thing for the ocean.
Exactly. So now you can also see that they're all
Did
lining up.
he dump his bodies in there?
No,
Or
no, no.
the body? Oh, okay.
Okay. So Monica
Interesting.
brought investigators to a row of identical looking apartment buildings within the complex. And she couldn't 100% recollect which apartment complex it was because they were all the same. They all looked the same.
Is it in this picture we're looking at right now?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. Monica then said that she might think it was, I believe, like apartment, if I remember, let's say apartment 4 and 8. But again, she wasn't 100% sure. So investigators then had to clearly go through every single person that resided in all these apartments. So obviously, it's going to take a while. And they only had a vague profile to go on, a wealthy man with taste for luxury cars. Investigators then had one person that piqued their interest who did possess these high-end vehicles and was wealthy. His name was listed as Joji Obara. Joji Obara was born in Simsongjong. That's his actual name. And he then later on changed it to Joji Obara, and he was born on 10th August 1952. Bara was educated at a private school in Tokyo and received daily tutoring in a variety of subjects. At age 15, he enrolled into the prestigious prep school affiliated with Keio University, virtually guaranteeing his acceptance into the university. So clearly very intelligent. 2 years after his father's death in Hong Kong, Joji Obara inherited property in both Osaka and Tokyo. A well-educated man, he traveled extensively and graduated from the university with degrees in both politics and law. Eventually, he became a naturalized Japanese citizen and legally then changed his name to Joji Obara. Obara invested heavily in real estate during Japan's economic boom, amassing an estimated fortune of up to 38 million. However, when the recession hit in the 1990s, he lost his company and much of his wealth. As creditors did close in, reports did suggest that Obara began using his business as a front for laundering money for the Yakuza syndicate.
Ooh.
Those that did know him described him as distant, reclusive, some would even say a loner. He wasn't known for being overly friendly or approachable. In fact, according to earlier arrest records, he actively avoided having his photograph taken and went to great lengths to conceal his identity whenever possible. And then further investigation into Obara revealed a disturbing criminal history. In one prior incident, he had been arrested for disguising himself as a woman to enter a woman's restroom where he attempted to film all the women coming in and out.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yep. And now that we know a little bit about him, he's kind of matching the description of the victims that came forward. And then the investigation from here kind of blows wide open. Two of the women we mentioned before, Monica and Jessie, were shown a photo lineup of 100 individuals. Without hesitation, both of them independently picked out Joji Obara. While there still at this point wasn't a direct link to Lucie Blackman at this stage, investigators believed they now had enough evidence to arrest Obara on charges related to assault and sexual abuse from his previous victims. And from here, this is where they were able to obtain search warrants for his various properties that he owned. And what he discovered was truly disturbing and honestly jaw-dropping. So like we said before, the details are disturbing. So trigger warning, it's not a little, it's hard to hear greatly. As search warrants were executed across the various properties he owned, what investigators discovered were his residence was filled with drugs, alcohol, and various drug-related paraphernalia. Many of the substances were later identified as having sedative effects. Most notably, a large quantity of chloroform was recovered.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. Even more unsettling was a strange metal hook they found mounted to the ceiling of his apartment in the luxury Zushi Marina complex. And this is sort of an idea that you can get what kind of hooks they were looking at in his apartment. And they were just on his ceiling. And originally, investigators could not understand what these hooks were for. And it did leave them with a huge question mark in the beginning while they were searching his apartment.
Sorry to interrupt. To our listeners, the hook that is being shown, and again, we do recommend you go on YouTube. That way you can fully see the details yourself. But if you do not or not have the means to look at YouTube, we will describe them to you. So think of it as a U-shaped bracket on a metal plate, and these would be drilled to the hole essentially. So these would be used to hang or to like hook a hook into, if this is making any sense, or pretty much like a pulley system this would be used. But yeah, that's it. That's what we're looking at.
You really got me to hook a hook.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm very bad at describing stuff.
Yeah.
Think of
I thought it was a metal plate with a loop.
Yeah, it's a metal plate with a loop that's soldered together.
That's like me asking, like, what's the definition of evil? Well, the definition of evil is when you have an evil person.
No, it's when you're like, oh, I have a Windows computer, not a Microsoft computer.
I'm gonna let Billy Gates hear that.
Billy. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
As the investigators continued to search the residence of Joji Obara, they also uncovered hundreds and hundreds of videotapes, each one more horrifying than the last. These tapes documented Obara's assault in disturbing detail, showing his victims completely unresponsive as he carried out his attacks.
He was filming all this.
Yep. And he kept every single one. And when I say they found hundreds and hundreds, I believe they said, quote me if I'm wrong, if someone knows, because now I can't remember.
I'll fact check.
I think it was around 400, but I could be wrong of just of what he was doing to them.
Yes, I saw that because I was doing some research here. I saw that it was like about 400 women,
Yeah.
and he filmed it all.
Mm-hmm.
What do you? This is a stupid question, but like, what do you do with that footage? You go back and you watch it? They probably
Oh,
do.
yeah, he probably got off on it.
Yeah.
That's what they do. That's why they're sadistic and twisted. He saved those because internet isn't readily available at that point, right? So what do? You sit on the couch, you plug it in, and you again, trigger warnings, you jack off to your own porno.
You said 400. That's
Yeah, man.
insane. And of
That's
this
nuts.
400, like how many girls are coming like forward with this?
Well, she already named like a handful.
Yeah, I think again, because Tim Blackman was really in the media, I think that allowed people to come forward. Because generally speaking, other than the some that had come forward previously that were being swept under the rug, it wasn't really looked into until Lucie.
I wonder what this guy's doing during all this. Like now that it's gaining its media attention, like he didn't think to burn the tapes. Like he must have really thought he wasn't gonna get caught.
Yeah, I was gonna say he probably thought he was invincible. He's the son of like a millionaire, billionaire, however rich his father was. He thought he was untouchable, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't smart enough to go to school. His father probably paid for his admission.
Yeah, because like as soon as like Tim Blackman is making this go viral and it's gaining its media attention, my first thought would be okay, burn the evidence because it's all just laying here. But he must have really thought, like I said, he wasn't gonna get caught if he made no attempt to.
Hey, buddy, when you go under the name Yuri Honda, they might look into the Honda family, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. He really planned it out, different aliases, different names.
And let's not forget, he's obviously intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
very smart.
Well, he probably thought when he carried out these like acts, chloroforming his victims, he thought, okay, they're going to forget what he looks like, and they wouldn't be able to pick him out of like a sea of 100 men, right?
Good
But you
point.
said he was a loner. Like,
Yeah.
it's interesting because don't you think there has to be an air of like charisma to him for him to be able to? I don't want to say pull these girls in 'cause I don't like that term, but go on these dates with them.
Yeah, but you don't know
Unless they're
how
yeah.
you don't know how good looking he was for the time, right? Ted Bundy was good looking at the time. Paul Bernardo was good looking for his time, and he might have been good looking to the Japanese women, right?
But-
And sorry, and hostesses are paid.
That's what I was gonna say.
They're
Yeah.
paid, right?
Right?
So whether you look like Quasimodo or whether you look like Prince Charming, you still got to do your job as a hostess.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. A lot of them were hostesses, right? So this is their job.
Makes sense.
And while the investigators were looking, because again, they're going to have to go through all the footage, see if they can find women that they can possibly contact, find clues, and just strengthen their case, it quickly became clear what the ceiling hooks were used for. And what what's his name, Obara did was he would hook their legs to the hooks on the ceiling to then be able to easily maneuver them how he wants.
I'm
Yeah.
shocked, but not shocked because that was my first inkling as to what he was using them for was to hook his victim somehow.
Yes.
See, I would have liked to give him some sort of like maybe leeway that, okay, he was maybe into BDSM, because when I saw those hooks, I thought of like 50 Shades of Grey, like you see those hooks on like the BDSM crosses, right? You tie your person and then you loop them there and then you pulley them. Mom, Dad, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's just an assumption. So, but I thought that maybe, okay, he has the ceiling. He probably like grabbed his victims, hooked them up, and like, did the deed. But now that you're saying that he tied them to their legs and had his way with them, I wonder if it was probably all four limbs because there was four hooks and he probably pulleyed them up to a certain point.
That I don't know, because remember, I think the reason he had these hooks is because these women are unconscious, right? So they're not able to
Yeah.
move.
Jesus.
But
Gross.
I can't. And I can't even imagine being the police or investigators who have to watch
Yeah,
all
their
these
fathers, their
videos.
brothers,
Mhm.
their uncles, their partners. My God.
Yeah.
Those-
However, when they went through all the footage, there was no footage of Lucy. And then they came across one of the most heartbreaking breaking cases tied to Obara, and that was of Clarita Ridgway, who was an Australian model from Claremont, Western Australia, and that is a picture of her. She's also very beautiful.
Yeah.
And at the time, she had been working as a bar hostess in Tokyo's district. And Karita appeared on some of the video footage that was recovered by police. And what they noticed was that obviously she was unconscious and she was being abused. And then all of a sudden, her body, how they described it, was getting these really bad tremors and almost like, what's the
Spasms?
correct? And according to records, when they looked into her, she had been dropped off at a hospital by a man who claimed she was suffering from food poisoning. Okay. There was no investigation. They did not look into if these tremors and her not functioning made sense to food poisoning. All they did was place her on life support because I guess at this point she didn't really have any brain function as well. And a week later, she passed away because they had to pull the plug. And again, no autopsy was performed either. However, they did one fucking small intelligent thing. They kept a it's true.
Fuck, eh?
They kept a sample of her liver. And investigators, when they found out who were investigating Lucy, when they found out about Karita, they then, and what's the word?
Investigated?
No,
They
they
pulled up
tested
the
her
evidence.
liver.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And it revealed that there was chloroform in her system.
Karita's or Lucy's?
Karita's.
Okay.
Right? So now we can concur that she didn't die because of food poisoning, and they also found out that chloroform sometimes has side effects where you can get tremors if it reacts negatively with your body. Obara also had a habit of keeping receipts for everything.
Oh my God, at least cover your tracks. He's such a sloppy, like if we're talking about a serial killer here, he's such a sloppy serial killer. Like, come on, buddy. Like, oh my God.
Before I proceed, also, people who work in hospitals and shit, like, do you not? I don't understand how you can think that somebody who has tremors and literally has no brain function can allocate to food poisoning and not even want to at least do an autopsy and say, oh, this mysterious man dropped her off and fucking fleed.
Well, mind you, that was also in the 80s, 90s. We're talking about where technology wasn't booming. I'm pretty sure if I dropped you off at the hospital in the same condition Karita was in, they would look at the CCTV footage, call me into questioning, and they would do a bunch of tests on you.
You would think.
They
Yeah.
would.
But you would think even then, this is not like, we're not talking 100 years ago. We're talking like late 90s.
Yeah, but in the 90s, people were still getting away with murder.
You don't know how overwhelmed the hospital was at the time that he dropped her off too, right?
I guess. Fine.
No, I totally get it, but just always playing like that it was an advocate. What if it was really busy? It's easy to fall into the wraps in the hospital.
I'm chucking it up to the fact that because they didn't have the technology at the time, they can't put that much effort into using technology at the time.
It's just weird because like I'm no medic, but that like tremors don't sound like the symptom of food poisoning.
No, and the fact that you have to put someone on life support doesn't,
For food poisoning?
yeah, I don't know.
But we don't know what the dish was said, right? Because if the dish could contain parasites potentially, then they could have chucked it up to the fact that she got a parasite poisoning and the parasite was taking over her body kind of thing. Because I know when I go to South America to visit my parents, obviously I can't have seafood. I have a seafood allergy, but anyone new to South American food, you don't go near fresh seafood because of the amount of parasites that are in there.
Interesting.
right? So I'm pretty sure he could have probably came up with the conclusion like, oh, I took her out on a date and we went to this place and he said a dish that would have potentially just curbed the fact that she was on food poisoning.
Okay. Valid point, valid point. Moving forward with the receipts. And what the investigators then did was they wanted to take the receipts and see if they could get some sort of movements on the days that Lucy disappeared. On July 1st, and that is the day that Lucy went missing, Obara called her at approximately 3 p.m. By 4 p.m., they had stopped at a restaurant together, and this was later confirmed by witnesses. Around 5 p.m., it was said they arrived at Obara's Zushi Marina apartment. Notably, this is also the last time that you get any communication from Lucy, and her communication after the fact ceases. A few days later, receipts showed that Obara had returned to Tokyo, and on July 4th, he made several purchases. On July 5th, receipts placed him at another one of his properties, this time in Blue Sea Aburatsubo area. By July 6th, a neighbor had reported loud suspicious noises coming from his apartment. Then, investigators came across another receipt that triggered huge alarms. It listed the purchases of a chainsaw, cement, and a portable tent. But without a body or direct forensic evidence, police still didn't have enough to charge Obara with Lucy's murder. And at this point, we're coming on to about 9 months since Lucy's disappearance. Investigators did begin an exhaustive search of the Blue Sea property and its surroundings. For weeks, they found nothing, and eventually the search of the property was coming to an end. And from what I gathered, it was a couple days and they were going to shut it down because they literally could not find anything at this property. And they decided to walk along the coast ocean one more time, and which was near his apartment. And a few hundred meters away from the apartment on the Blue Sea area, along the shoreline, there were a series of caves. And in one of
God.
yeah,
Sorry.
and in one of the caves, they found a rusted bathtub. And when they had lifted it, they were met with a disturbing sight. The sand beneath it was crawling with larvae.
No,
And
no.
larvae only meant one thing: decomposition. So they began digging, and what they uncovered were dismembered remains of a body. The body had been cut into pieces, and the head was encased in concrete. Unf- yeah. Unfortunately, the body was too decomposed at this point to know the cause of death. However, using dental records, they compared it to Lucy's, and it confirmed that the remains belonged to Lucie Blackman.
Jesus.
Yeah. In October 2000, Obara was then charged with drugging, rape, and murder of Blackman, as well as manslaughter for Clarita and the raping of 8 other women. His trial began on July 4th of 2001 and on April 24th, 2007, which, why did it take 6 years? I don't understand. His trial began in 2001 and he was only charged in 2007,
What?
which is wild to me.
Was he in jail that whole time?
Yeah, when you're charged, you're in jail, yeah.
But still.
And he was found guilty of the multiple charges of rape and the manslaughter against Clarita, but he was acquitted of Blackman's murder and rape for lack of direct evidence. And then the Blackman family came out and said that they were going to do an appeal and they were going to hopefully get this case retried, and hopefully he would then be found guilty. And from what I said before, how I gathered it and from my understanding, maybe the way the prosecutors presented it, they just said that there wasn't enough evidence to actually link her death to him. And then after the appeal on December 2008, the Tokyo High Court found Obara guilty on the counts of abduction, dismemberment, and disposal of Blackman's body. He received life imprisonment, and based on the videos and investigators' investigation, it was concluded that he sexually abused anywhere between 150 to 400 women between 1992 and 2000.
Oh my God.
1992 to 2000,
Like
he raped 400 girls.
1992 and 2000. That's 8 freaking years, okay?
Mm-hmm.
How many did you say he could? Hold on, let's do some math here.
150 to 400.
So the year has 365 times 8. Okay, that's 2,920. You said around
150 to 400. So
okay, let's
say
inflate
3.
that to 400. That is an assault every single fucking week for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. No.
Yeah.
Do we know that if he killed any other girls of these 400?
No, the only 2 that he was ever really linked to was Lucie Blackman and Karita.
That's so interesting because of the alleged probable 400 girls that he's raped. Why such mutilation to these 2 girls? Like, her head was encased in a concrete block.
Mm-hmm. And I do have a generalized theory on, remember when they uncovered all the videotapes and they did not find one of Lucie. Clearly he has a fetish for videotaping all his acts. The reason I think there was not one on Lucie is because he got rid of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Because Lucie was the one that was in the media. She was the one that everybody was talking about. She was national news. So I think that's why he got rid of it. But getting rid of everything else was kind of like his own trophy. And like Tanya said, to go rewatch it if you wanted to. So I think that is why there was none of Lucie. But I definitely think it was recorded at one point.
For sure. You
Yeah.
just threw it out.
I don't, okay, and here's maybe my theory that goes against it, okay? He probably, let's just say he graped, abused, sexually assaulted one person every week. What if he just accidentally killed those 2?
No.
Because if this was like a serial killer, you'd have more parents come out into the news because of Blackman, right?
Yeah, I don't think he meant to kill.
Yeah, no, I don't think he meant to kill.
I 100% don't think he meant to kill Karita, because Karita was due to the fact that the chloroform and whatever drug he had given her did not mesh well with her body. Right? That's why she got the tremors, and that's why she eventually lost brain activity. Lucie Blackman, because they couldn't distinguish a form of
Cause of death.
Thank you. I'm not willing to say I don't think he intentionally meant to kill her. I'm not sure on that. I wish that there was a little more maybe closure.
Yeah, because of 400 girls, why were these 2 like mutilated?
I'm going with the theory of the fact that he didn't mean to kill those 2. It just, out of a series of unfortunate events, it happened. And because you would have had so many more like families come forward and be like, oh, I think he killed my daughter. My daughter's been missing in these past years, blah, blah, blah. Like, I personally think it was not an act of like intention. He was a serial abuser, but I don't think he was meant to be a serial killer. Because they found the chloroform, but they didn't find any other murderous weapons.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
That's fair.
hard to connect those dots.
Because if he wasn't afraid to hide the chloroform, he wouldn't have been afraid to hide his murder weapons.
Yeah, I'm more leaning toward that. It's just I'm not willing to say that there was no intention with Lucie.
No, there was probably no intention, and maybe it might have been she said something wrong and he like revenge killed her. Like, there's so many theories that can go about, especially if you're that introverted, especially if you're that much of a loner. And she's a very pretty girl, you know? So imagine your self-esteem's already in the pits and you have all this money and all these properties, and yet that's not enough for a pretty girl to like you or to treat you with the respect that you want. Or maybe he paid her to do something, she agreed, backed out, and he's like, well, well, fuck, like, how am I supposed to get rid of her without her telling the truth about me? Right?
Yeah.
There was a motive behind Lucy's killing. We will never know that motive because I'm pretty sure he didn't spill the details on why he did it. But I'm pretty sure that the motive had to have been something self-inflicting. Like, it damaged him to a point where he's like, I'm gonna encase your head. I'm gonna just do this, and this, and toss you in a cave and hope that no one finds out who you were.
Yeah.
I think some of the cases that we do like really pull at my heartstrings and really encapsulate the like vulnerable that we often try to zone in on. Like Gabriel Fernandez was definitely one of them for me, but she's like up there for me. I don't know if it's because she's so young or she's so beautiful or her storyline in the sense that she moved to Tokyo to try to like find herself and she was like only 21 years old. Like what were you doing when you were 21?
I was thinking about this. I was like, would I ever, in my wildest
No.
dream, be able to have the courage to say at 21, I'm going to pick up myself and move to a different country? I don't even know if I say it all the time because, sometimes I fucking hate Canada. But I say it all the time. I'm going to pack up and move and I'm going to go to Spain or I'm going to go to Italy or wherever. But I don't know if I could legit do it. And I'm 30 now. So for you to do it at 21, yeah.
That's what makes it so much more heartbreaking where she was just looking to find herself and then she was taken
Yeah.
advantage of.
I feel for her.
Hmm.
Yeah, because you're just trying to,
She was robbed of that opportunity to find herself and to become what she could have been.
yeah.
Hmm.
It's a very sad case for
Mhm.
sure. And 400 women?
That's an insane number.
Mm-hmm. Very big.
Hopefully justice was restored for these women.
Yeah.
All right. Well, betrayers, that ends our episode. As we usually say, walk with keys in between your knuckles because you don't know who's out there and who's stalking you or watching you or wants anything from you.
Can I actually add to that?
Yeah, walk in pairs. Yeah.
So this past Easter weekend, I saw my cousin, and she works at a retail store. Anyways, so she went to the mall, and she was driving around the parking lot and noticed that a car was following her on the parking lot. Like if she turned left, the car turned left. If she went right, like the car was following her. So she drove around for a bit, and then she kind of just says, "Okay, I need to go inside the mall. I need to do what I have to do. She's gonna park the car and get out." Parks the car, gets out, goes inside the mall, does her shopping, comes out an hour later. The guy was waiting for her at the exit. So he's waiting for her. She's like, my jaw kind of dropped because at this point she's like, it's not a coincidence anymore. Like maybe he was trying to find a parking spot, but he was like at the exit of the store. So then she gets a little spoofed and he parks. So he sees her come out. Then he knows where her car was because then he goes and parks his car right next to hers. So she goes back inside and then she requests that like I can't remember what she called. There was like an official term for it, but like a companion walk her to her car. This is all broad daylight, by the way. It's not even at nighttime. So he was
mall?
waiting at her car
Von Mills?
in Woodbridge, yeah.
Oh, fuck, eh?
So she had her companion walk her to her car and just like I don't know, you think the worst because I think it was pretty evident what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
And me and Anna had a similar situation a couple years ago. We were at the movie theater and a guy was following me, my sister, and Anna to our car and was only stopping girls as they were walking to their cars and some lame excuse like
It was gas money. He had no gas money. And he just dropped off his kid and he needed $10 to get back home. Something like that.
and I'm hearing like a lot of stories of this happening in the city. So just be careful because it's like it's actually really scary out there.
Honestly, in any country, it's not just pertaining to Canada. Everybody's dealing with it, yet you do have to be very vigilant.
And in all
Vigilant.
honesty, if you are driving, ladies or anyone, and a car is following you, there's a few tips that I've learned. If a car's following you, make a couple of right turns, and if the car keeps following you, that means that the car is following you because you can be going to the same place. But if you do have this gut feeling that the car is following you, GPS to the nearest police station and head on there.
Actually, to add on to that, what she had done after, because she was so spoofed, is she and her mom had gone to the police station, and their course of advice was call the cops as it's happening, because then they'll show up to the spot.
Yeah, that
Interesting.
too.
Yeah.
That too. But if you're not in that situation and you are driving home or you're driving to a place that you don't want that person to know where you live or where your friends are, vice versa, just head on over to your nearest police station. If you're being followed in a parking lot, pick up 911, give them a call. If you're on a school campus, they always have campus walks, like guards, they always have security. Give them a call. Don't be afraid. And at some points, we all want to be that Wonder Woman, Wonder Man. We all want to be that superhero that thinks they could take on the person. But at the end of the day, you don't know what they have in their pockets. They could have a gun. They could have the chloroform. They could have anything.
I had to utilize a few campus walks back in the day when I was in university. I had a class that finished at like 7 o'clock at night in the dead of December. It was pitch black outside. So
Yeah.
I was no stranger to some of those walks.
Yeah. So just please be careful out there, betrayers, and have a good night, have a good morning, have a good afternoon.
But before you do all that, and if you're tuning in on YouTube, don't forget to like,
Comment?
Oh, I'm supposed. Is this like a new thing we're doing?
No, you
No.
should just try. She was hoping you would say
hoping
comment
you'd
and I
catch
would say,
on.
yeah, I know.
Okay.
to rehearse.
All right. Let's do it again. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All
Take two.
right.
Pretend you didn't see the other part. Don't forget to like,
Subscribe.
And comment. We are available across all platforms. We are working to get on Apple's podcast, but click, like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends, tell your family, tell anybody, because we are here to provide you with the latest and greatest stories. Not latest and greatest, but more like hidden underneath the stories.
And then
we just-
also,
oops.
sorry.
We just come back to the fact that we do have like day jobs, so this is like our side thing that we do. But in the last couple days and weeks, we've had an opportunity to engage with some of you guys over social media and hear some like feedback and commentary. So that's been super fun. So thanks for tagging along, because that legit makes us so excited and so happy. You should see our group chat.
And correct. And also just realize that we're also doing this just to spend time with each other, to have fun. So it's not always going to be as dark and
Cryptic.
Like we're gonna
Mysterious.
be joking around with each other. Sometimes we talk to each other with you like we talk to each other when we're alone.
It's exactly true. Yeah.
And it might be a little sometimes a little, this one can be a little vulgar, but that's literally just because we're just,
Know
being
each
real.
other since we were 4 years old.
Yeah. And but we hope eventually, you guys enjoy it, and like we all said, like, comment,
Subscribe.
See you later.
See you later.
bye.